Well, welcome everyone. I'm Steve Savant. We're broadcasting live from the heart of Phoenix, Arizona on KXXT Family Values Radio. And I also want to welcome our online audience on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And I want to give a big shout out to Beyond Fear to Freedom, one of the best Christ-centered fellowships that provide a safe and loving community for women in recovery. Just check out their website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. And while you're out there, check out their Friday night event schedule from 5:30 to 6:15. You'll be able to go ahead and have fellowship and food, childcare provided. And then it's about 6:15 or so, they'll have the main message, both for guys and for gals. It's great. Just hop out to their site, again, beyondfeartofreedom.org. And if you want to talk to me and write me, I'm happy to take your call. It's Steve at, well, actually your email I'm happy to take, Steve at 180uturn.com. That's Steve at 180youturn.com, and happy to respond to you as best I can. Today, our last day with Raygen Mitchell, we're talking about his story. If you have not listened to the front end of this, you can hop out on YouTube, watch Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and yesterday, which is the God Day of the, Holy Thursday,
Absolutely.
and watch the whole interview and the story. Blockbuster, and I have to say, I've never had a guy that has a testimony where you pretty much basically 24/7, you're just looking to get high,
Yeah.
Now, yesterday we talked about your conversion experience, and I have to say, everybody's got a verse.
Yeah.
The verse that breaks the curse, right?
Right.
Yours was, Jesus said, I say to you, Peter says, hey, should I forgive my brother 7 times? He says, no, 70 times 7, right?
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
all the verses for him to unload on your heart, and in an almost audible way,
Right.
tell me about that.
And so it was one of those things, like I said, I don't think I'd even read that verse. I only read the Bible basically up until that point when they made me. And, I was just reading it, and it wasn't really making a lot of sense. It was starting to make sense to me, and it was starting to come alive. I had read the Bible occasionally in prison when I'd been bored, but it didn't make any sense. And so, God just, and I really feel like, because one of the things that I struggle with, and still to this day struggle with, is my anger. Like I think it's one of those things where I grew up all my life where if you got angry, you didn't have a conversation about it. Like there was no conversation. If you were angry, or if someone else was angry, or if you were both angry, then you got in first. Like you didn't wait, you didn't talk about it, you just swung. You just got into a fight. And if you lost, cool, but you got in. So I think God was just trying to tell me, hey, like there's a better way. And more ways than one. There was a better way, not just in this, but there's a better way. So.
Now, when you got converted, you're following the Lord now, you're taking the Bible in, right?
Right.
That which you didn't understand is now bringing understanding.
Absolutely.
You didn't get it at first, now you're getting it all the time. It's become part of your daily life. You're sticking your nose in the Word. And by the way, I just say this time and time again, 85 to 90% of the hassles that I read about from other brothers and sisters could be completely fixed if you had a regular time in the Bible.
Amen.
I hate to be so simplistic, but
it's an instruction manual for how to live.
Now, I love it when guys go like, hey, for all this time, I figured, hey, I want to get out of the whole rehab thing now. I'm clean. It's great. I'm going to find a church, get a job.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Why do a lot of, and you're one of these guys, hey, they're going to stay in the system and help other people get better.
So I'd like to tell you that, man, it was altruistic, and I just always wanted it. But I went through the program, and I was, at this point, 38, 39 years old, and I was living in another state. And I really didn't know what to do. Living with my mom wasn't really going to be an option. I didn't want to do that. And so I was like, well, I'll stay there. They have this internship process where you can stay about 6 months long. You can live there. You can work there. You're not going to make any money, but you don't have to pay anything either. And so I was like, well, I'll stay here for this internship. And then I'll go out and get a job, and I'll get a church, and I'll get integrated back into life and live my life, because that's what I should do. So then the internship goes by, and then they asked to hire me, and they say you should stay for a while. And I was like, well, I don't really have a job opportunity. I don't know where I'm going to stay. That sounds like a good idea. I'll just stay here and work. Still not sold on it. And this goes by like two years. I'm still not sold after 2 years. And then one day I was just like talking about what I was going to do next with my pastor, who's also my boss. And I was like, I'm going to do next. And he goes, man, I'm not telling you what to do. He goes, but have you ever thought that maybe what you're supposed to do next is what you're doing now? And I was like, I don't. And he goes, man, I'm telling you. He goes, I just really feel like you're supposed to be sharing the gospel. And I said, and I was strong belief, I said, I'm not a pastor. Like I can't be a pastor. And then I think that turned into, I can't be a pastor. Like, I can't be, like, you know, so that statement turned into a question. And that question turned into, like, I was like, and so I was like, maybe I am supposed to do this. I enjoy it. I love what I do. I feel like I really help people. There's guys coming out of prison who I don't look like a guy who's spent time in prison and been locked up. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean like guys don't associate me with prison. So when I meet them and they're trying to tell me their story, and I hear this a lot, they say, well, man, you don't know anything about me. You don't understand me. You couldn't understand where I've been. And I'm like, well, tell me about it. And they're like, well, I've been locked up and you know nothing about that. I'm like, I've been in prison. I spent most of my life around people that have been incarcerated. I've grown up with it, like the culture of it in my life. And they're like, well, you don't look like that. And I'm like, well, because I don't associate with that anymore. Like like God gave me a new nature, and God's like, hey, you can look a certain way, but you don't have to live that way. And so I just really believed that. I was a racist. I was hateful. I was a mean person. I was, you know, all these things. But God gave me a new nature, and so I don't have to live like that anymore. And so I just really started thinking, maybe I am supposed to, you know, not necessarily fix people or whatever, because I don't think I can do, but just help people. Like my belief is, I just want to find a way to get you and Jesus Christ in the same room. And I don't have to do anything else after that. Christ will do it. But I just got to get you in the room together. So that's what I try and do now. And it's working at Teen Challenge. Been there now almost 8 years. Been working there almost 7.
And what's your actual title?
So I'm actually the Dean of Men. What it is I'm in charge. We have students is what they're called. And so I'm in charge of the students and making sure the students are doing everything they need to be doing. You know, their spiritual life is taken care of, their school life, their program, and everything like that. And I think we were talking, and we had said something, you know, that just struck home with me is one of the things that I really liked about Teen Challenge was I came into a program, a rehab, and I spent a year, 13 months, with a meth addiction for 15, 16 years. And I just remember being there, and no one ever sat me down and said, hey, I want to talk about your drug addiction and your meth addiction and your meth problem. I want to talk about ways to help you cope so you don't do meth. The first thing someone said to me was, no one said, hey, let me ask you about your meth addiction. First thing someone said was, let me ask you about your relationship with Jesus Christ. And I said, I don't have one. And they said, let's start there. And so they focused more on my relationship with Christ than they did about how I need to find coping mechanisms to not get high, because they were like, look, we're not here to get you sober. We're here to set you free. And so they were focused on setting me free through Christ. And then in the process, I'm going to get sober because it's a byproduct of that.
How spiritual is it, instead of attacking the physiological codependency, attacking the spiritual side of this equation, which is the underpinning of good and bad?
Right. Well, the thing is, the way we look at it is the drugs are a Band-Aid for the spiritual aspect and the spiritual healing that you need in your life. That's the scar or the bruise or the injury. So you heal that, and you don't need the Band-Aid anymore. And I really believe that. Like if you can get someone introduced to Jesus Christ in a real and powerful way, like supernatural way, radically transforms and changes their life, then they start that process of drawing closer to God, and the closer they draw to God, the further they draw away from all the things of the world that they need. And so I just truly believe that. And that's why I found it so passionate to stay there and serve and want to help people and introduce people to Christ in a real way so that they can have the same experience that I had.
And it's powerful that you, I'm sorry that you did live this way. I truly am.
Right.
I have a great regret for a lot of loss.
Yeah, me too.
But the Lord can make up for the years that the locust ate, no doubt about it. And I love that line in Genesis, the devil, you know, where Joseph said, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good, even to this present result.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
This is the present result.
I am, like, everything in my life lined me up to be where I'm at. And like I said, the charge that I ended up taking for the girl in the car, if I had never taken that charge, I would have never had to come to Arizona, because I would have been out to do whatever I wanted and run wild. So all of the things, my mom moved out of Oklahoma to get away from me and came to Arizona. Had she not moved to Arizona, she wouldn't have been here for someone to knock on her door to tell her about Teen Challenge so that she could then tell my lawyer and then make that happen. All of this stuff, all of it, all the bad, all the good, everything lined up so that I could be where I'm at, to be a powerful agent for Jesus and not for myself, to bring people to a real encounter with Christ so that they can have a radical transformation, as well as every time I counsel with people and every time I talk to people, I continue to go inward on me as well. Because so I'm not just like, hey, I'm fixed, let's help you. I'm always like, well, I struggle with that.
Yeah, I just want you to know, I mean, nobody here, myself or Ray, we're not arrived, we're not perfect, we're not doing any of this.
Absolutely not.
And by the way, if you've ever seen the film Saving Private Ryan, the first 30 minutes is gory detail of the assault on Normandy. Right. In 1 minute, all the medics were taken out of the game. It was just overwhelming. It was injured people helping other injured people get off the beach.
Yeah,
and that's what Teen Challenge and a lot of these guys, people that are still working their stuff out, still injuries. And listen, nobody, who's got a counseling degree? No, we don't.
Yeah, I don't.
I don't. No, so, but we notice we're seeing the change. And I like this. I'm sure that your testimony really helps guys confess and unload their stuff because, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. You never lived my thing. You don't know nothing about meth.
I'm like, I do. Yeah. I was you.
And that's what I like about it. Your testimony, listen, it's the blood of the Lord, right? He said the blood of Jesus and the word of your testimony.
Yep, absolutely.
It's a combination duo that's unsurpassed and second to none. I really like the ability where you can say this. And I got called on this yard one night when some gal said to me, Steve, you have no right to talk to us this way. And some sister that heard me in another yard said, oh, yes, he does.
Yeah.
He's got a testimony to come with it. Everybody's got a testimony. And by the way, if you're listening today, I would ask you as a challenge till next week, share your testimony with somebody that doesn't know the Lord. You'll be amazed how many people are in need of the Lord.
It's good.
You know the road to recovery can be difficult, but you don't have to travel it alone. Every Friday night, like-minded women gather together to share a meal and their stories, how they broke the destructive cycles in their lives by the power of God and moved on to a new life in Christ. For more information about Friday nights, just go out to their website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. If you can't get to BFF on Friday nights, or you don't live in the Phoenix area, you can stay connected by joining BFF's Subscribe Tribe, where you'll receive their weekly study guide, so you can track with them online. Just sign up today on BFF's website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. And don't forget to listen to BFF's weekly video podcast with Debbie G and Sheridan. Their own life experiences and their biblical influence will overhaul your thinking, your identity, and your future. They'll keep you encouraged with some great insight and biblical truth. Just friend them on Facebook or go out to their website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. BFF, where you might just discover a best friend forever.
Well, all this week we've been unpacking Raygen Mitchell's story. We're in day 5 of it. It's awesome. And I love Thursdays. Of course, yesterday's show about people finding the Lord, I just live for that day. And then, of course, we're talking about, hey, you stayed in the very place that you found the Lord. You found freedom from your meth addiction.
Absolutely. Yep.
And now you're helping other people. Now, 7-8 years into this, right? Mm-hmm. You've seen a lot.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I'd like to, I always think that I get hardened to a place where I'm like, man, I've seen it all. Mm-hmm. Like I've just, you start to see that same kind of patterns. Mm-hmm. And then every time I say I've seen it all, something happens and I'm like, man, I've never seen that.
I totally buy that, and I said I had, and I did have this for a long time in prison. I had a list of the top 10 guys that will never get saved. Yeah. I know it's terrible to say that, I know.
But yeah, you just.
But think about this: after 15 years, 7 out of the 10.
That's awesome. That means we only got 3 more to go.
3 more to go, and that tells me that God, nobody's outside the reach of God.
Amen.
You could have an encounter with God that could wake and shake you out of your own lethargy and your stupor or whatever addiction you're in, and it would bring you to a place where you could find redemption on a life-size solution to your life. I mean, I'm not talking a small tweak job here. We're talking about a major overhaul.
I was going to tell you, and I didn't even tell you this before, but I have to tell you now. You're talking about that. My dad, who was not a good person, not a good person. He lived to be 75. He got lung cancer, and lung cancer metastasized into stage 4 terminal cancer all through his body. And he lived longer than anyone should on stage 4 cancer. And in that last year and a half of his life when he was wasting away, he gave his life to the Lord in a real way. And before he died, he was baptized by water, and had really, like people said, there's a noticeable change in his life because he had been selfish, much like me, all his life, and he had a real change that was lasting. And so before he died, at 74 years old, it doesn't really matter how it happens or when it happens, but he had a real encounter with Jesus and changed his life, if only for a brief time, but he got to know where he was going and who his Heavenly Father was before he passed away.
So just to make sure our audience hears this, It's never too late.
Absolutely not.
It's not too late. So if you're sitting there and you're saying, and I remember I talked to a couple guys in the COVID wards that were sitting there at 84, 85.
Yeah.
They said, Steve, pray for us. I will. I'll pray for you. But will you in turn, will you examine the claims of Jesus?
Yeah.
Because you could be on the edge.
Yeah.
Of eternity. So you
Always.
need to make sure. Now, I love it when our fathers, my dad came way into late in his life, came
Yeah.
to the Lord. It was great. It changed him. He was a very hardened guy. And so I was really happy to see that happen. And, remember, sometimes in our families, our salvation affects our family members, our friends, our neighbors.
That's what my dad told me.
Yeah.
My dad told me that one of the reasons why he even considered it or even thought about giving his life to the Lord, even thought, hey, maybe there's something more to this, was because of the real change he had seen in my life. He was like, I looked at you and I was like, he's like different. Like I went back to visit him and stuff, and my demeanor and my countenance and the way that I talked, I was at peace. And he was like, that is the only reason why I started to think maybe there's more to this, because if he who had hated God for so long, if my son can actually have sound different, maybe there's something to it. And so, two things that I take away from that is your testimony, no matter how ineffective you think it is, can be everyone's watching you all the time. And two, it's never too late. Never too late.
So, and I just want to stress at the level to have you sharing now, 8 years now after finding the Lord, helping other addicts and other people that have been in some serious stuff. And just like you said, just about the time you think you've heard it and seen it all,
there's something
the
new.
Lord just brings another. Listen, hell is so inventive. They have their people. They're in the darkness, and they reinvent darkness on a level of devils
absolutely.
that you cannot believe. I mean, there's stuff that we've seen. It's just it's tragic. It's horrible. And it's sometimes, for me, to be honest with you, it's a little scary. But the Lord is way bigger than that. Now, when we're talking about your testimony and being 8 years now, you know what it's like. I mean, you threw punches at your own people trying to help you at Teen Challenge. People are still wrestling with things. Maybe they tell you to go jump. Maybe they say terrible things to you.
All the time.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where
it's never personal, though.
Yeah, I used to get so mad about it because I used to take everything personally. And now I have guys tell me off, call me all kinds of things, cuss me out. And now I just, I used to hate people, to be honest with you. Like, I didn't like people. I'm not a person. But now I just love, the more I get to know about somebody, they cuss me out, they get mad, they throw a fit, they use F-bombs, and I'm just like, man, I love you. I love, and the more I get to know about them, the more I realize how broken they are and how much they need Christ, just like I need Christ. And I'm compelled to love people and love them even more and want to draw them closer. And it just freaks them out. It freaked me out. I remember that, I told you, that first day, I was like, somebody who tells me they want to love me and give me a hug and I want to take a swing at them. I mean, I feel for those guys because I know how it is. You don't know what love is. You have no concept of what it means to receive love. And here this place is, with people that have Christ in their life that genuinely want to show you love in a genuine way, like real love. And that goes back to breaking that stronghold that I've always lived by, that I always believed by, was if you knew the real me, you wouldn't love me. Well, now I know that Christ knows the real me. Christ knows who I am inside and out in my heart, and he loves me and he accepts me. And I don't have to wear a mask. I don't have to wear a mask for this person, this person, or this person, because the person that really matters fully knows me and fully loves me. And there's such a freedom and liberation in that, knowing that God knows all of me and he loves me, and he sent his son to die on the cross for me, even when I was all of these things. Even when I was cursing his name and calling people that believed in him stupid and crazy and in a cult and whatever, God still loved me, and God still was making a way for my salvation and for my reconciliation back into the Father the whole time. And what a beautiful thing, and what a liberating thing that is.
I love the aspect of once as you were an atheist, and then you come to the Lord, and then all those years of walking as an atheist, we're still using God's name in vain, the very God we say we don't believe in, right? And then we're also hating. This is the amazing thing, And not only do I not believe in God, I hate Him.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. How could you hate something you don't believe in?
Exactly.
So now all of a sudden, now we love God.
Yeah.
We saw the capacity of his affection for our soul at a huge level.
Yeah.
Huge level.
If you've been, those who have been forgiven much, in turn, have the capacity to forgive. So I think of how far I was from God, and that he would still make a detailed, long mousetrap of a way to get me back to reconcile with him. And I think to myself, if God cares that much about me, how am I not compelled to want to show my affection for God? Because it's just an amazing thing. And like I've always said, the people that have been outside of God's love so far have so much capacity because they know what it's like to be outside of God's love, outside of God's will. And so when you get in, it's like being in a cold, dark room and then stepping into the sunlight. You appreciate that sunlight even more. I mean, everyone that's been in the sun, they know, but you've been in this cold, dark room for so long, and then you step into it and you feel the warmth of the sun on your face, and you feel the warmth it just warms your body, and you appreciate that. It's the same thing with God's love. You've been outside of God's love, living in sin and inequity for all this time, so long that you didn't even know that you wanted and craved the love of God. And then you step into that love and you're like, how did I not know that this was the most important thing? And so you want to tell everyone.
I've noticed that people that come out of extreme situations, whether it's codependent relationships, codependent drugs, alcoholism, the exchange rate of coming from the world and into the kingdom of light is so much higher. It's like 50-to-1 exchange rate. You know, well, I thought, what am I giving up? Well, actually, nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
I mean, nothing. So when I'm thinking about now Teen Challenge itself, give a little bit of, before we have to go, give a little bit about Teen Challenge.
So Teen Challenge has been around for almost 60 years. It's been David Wilkerson found some kids in New York that were on trial, and the Lord just spoke to him and said, you need to go help these people. And so he went there to try and help the kids in the court. He got kicked out of court. He thought, man, I missed it. And then because of him getting kicked out of court, he gained street cred with all these gangs in New York, because they were like, hey, the courts hate you, the cops hate you, we hate the cops. My enemy, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So he was able to start ministering these kids in a real way, and they'd listen because he was an outsider as well. And he started this ministry that was all built on the reconciliation with Jesus Christ as the main focus. Now, do we want to do all the other things to help you get set free from drugs and talk about that stuff? Absolutely. But the main focus that he felt was that Christ sets you free and changes your life, gives you new heart, new identity, new body, all of that. And so that's what this program is. The one in Arizona has been here for over 55 years. It's got centers in Tucson, Phoenix. The training center for the men is in New River, which is where I work. And so first 4 months of the program you spend in those two areas, and you go to my training center for about 8 months. My pastor's name is Rick Casto. He's in charge. Great guy, loving gentleman. We have a women's center where they can bring their children in Casa Grande, which is an amazing opportunity. So women always say, I can't go get help because I can't leave my kids. You can bring your kids to live with you. So we're not only going to set you free, but we're going to set your kids free too. We're going to get your kids introduced to Christ. And then we have an adolescent girls center in Tucson for girls 12 to 17 years old. Just some of the most horrific stories I've ever heard in my life about the things that happen to these little girls who were 13 years old and just get taken advantage of, get gobbled up by, I know what drugs did to me, and it breaks my heart when I hear what drugs do to a 13, 14-year-old girl. And so the opportunity, so we have that center there as well for them to be able to come in. And that's what we do.
And that's a huge facility that allows the children to be on, which I think is a whole nother game.
It's life-changing. So a woman can bring her kids in, and so we minister to the woman's heart, right? Set her free from drugs and alcohol. And then while we're doing that, their kids also get ministered to. Their kids also get to know the ways of the Lord. So we're raising the whole family unit up so that they can leave together as an equipped unit.
Wow.
And it's just an amazing opportunity.
Well, listen, don't forget to watch the entire episode of Raygen's Monday through Friday. Go out on YouTube. It's all out there. Watch it in succession. And remember, if you're not doing anything Friday night, hop out to BFF, their website, Beyond Fear to Freedom. It starts at 5:30 to 6:15 for food fellowship, childcare provided, and a meeting for men and women. For information, just hit their site at beyondfeartofreedom.org. So until next time, I'm Steve Savant. And remember, no one's outside the reach of God. No, not one.